Oh, excuse me. I got to edit this now already. My blooper. I might leave it. It'll make a funny effect. Anyway, welcome everyone to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating and how to navigate through it. Boy, I'm having a great morning. Today, my guest is Marilee Grace. She's an author, speaker, founder, and lead life transformational coach at RightSwipeGirl. Did I get that right?
It's actually Marilee.
Marilee. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm
Yes.
leaving this guy so this way you can see my
You said it
bloopers.
right the first time.
Marilee. Marilee, first of all,
Yes.
thank you so much for being on People on Dating. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. First of all, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. So, Marilee, tell me a little bit about yourself. What was that journey like? Why the book? What was that aha moment?
Okay. So when I started on the dating apps, I did not start with the intention that I was going to write a book. I don't even know why I got on. Well, I do know why I got on the dating apps. It's just kind of crazy how I happened upon that. I was divorced in 2021 in May. I had been working with a therapist throughout the divorce, hired a coach, was working with her. All the women who were a part of the program that I was in kept talking about the dating apps. And I did not want a man. I did not want a relationship, but I wanted to fit into the group. So I decided, I'll go ahead and, see what's out there.
Right.
Oh boy, there's there's a lot of weird out there. That's what I found. My coach did say, "Are you sure you want to be doing this? You haven't been divorced that long." And I said, what will it hurt? Well, as things progressed, my coach kept saying, not for sure this is the best thing for you, but if you're going to stay on them, just use it as an opportunity to practice and collect data and learn to talk to men again. Because I had been married for 29 years and I had talked to the
Wow.
same man for 29 years, and that wasn't a good conversation. So I needed to learn how to have better conversations. And as I was on these, I started seeing some trends, and I started doing a little bit of research and realized there are lots of catfishers on the dating apps. There are a lot of scammers, and there are bots. And I had heard that from another gentleman, and he said, "Oh, it's probably a bot that you're talking to." I said, "A bot? What, like a robot?" He said, "Well, kind of. Yeah. They try to scam your information from you. It's a way to scam rather than being a real person. They just set these up to try to scam people."
Yeah.
I would share with my friends some of the funny posts and some of the ick posts, and I'd say, "Girls, I'm not making this shit up, really, seriously." And I would show them. And I would always say, I could write a book about this. And then finally, at one point, I stopped saying I could, and I said, I am going to. And so that's when I really opened up my search, and I started right swiping on lots of men just to gather data and see how many of these people were really people, and how many. So people are like, "That's really horrible that you did that." No, I was talking to a scammer, so I don't feel like I did anything wrong. That's like when you get those spam phone calls
Yeah.
and those telemarketers on your phone, and you have a conversation and take up 20 minutes of their time, and then they hang up on you. I felt like that's what I was doing. I was sparing women of 20 minutes of nonsense from their life. And so I stayed on the apps for 15 months, too long. I had a couple of situationships. Yes, they were not relationships, they were
Okay.
situationships.
Yeah, I want to get
And
into that
then
in a bit. Like, what does that mean? So go ahead, continue
a
your story. I'm sorry.
situationship. So my first one, my first situationship, he was a man that when we were getting ready to meet for the first time,
Yeah.
I realized that he wasn't concerned about meeting me and getting to know about me. He just wanted to meet, go to his place, have sex. And I was like, nope, screeched the halt on that. My next situationship seemed really authentic until I caught him in some lies. And so I was like, yeah, no, screeched, stop that one.
Yeah.
The third situationship I thought had potential to be a relationship, But and I talk about him. He's got 2 chapters in my book, chapter 5 and chapter 15, if I remember correctly. With him, I realized I was in the situationship with him for the longest, from about, if I remember right, October all the way through when I finally said, I'm done, to July. So
Okay.
what is that? About 9 months. And he was actually from out of state, came back to Kansas City to visit his mom. So when he'd come back to town, we would go on, we would meet and do things, whatever, go for walks. I'd have him over for dinner. We'd watch movies, things like that. We called throughout the week. We text daily. But I realized that it really wasn't going into a relationship because he really wasn't emotionally available.
Hmm.
He held that at a distance, and he talked the big, emotionally intelligent game. He
Right.
said all the right words, but he didn't follow through. And then when I looked back over some of our texts, and I realized, wow, I was falling back into some of those same characteristics that I had fallen into when I was in my 29-year marriage. I thought, okay, so girlfriend, there's some more work to be done. And that's when I got off the apps and I started compiling my book, and I kind of categorized them according to how they fit. It was odd categories for some of the chapters of the book. But yeah, he was a long situation. He was a
Okay.
long situationship. He just was not ready to invest more than surface level.
Yeah. It's uh, some of the points that you hit on, right? The bots, the situationship, uh, being emotionally available. And guys, you got to get this book. This is a good book. I mean, there's a couple of chapters I wanted to talk about. Um,
Okay.
so for me personally, I'm not an app guy. I tried them. I had some success, some, uh, I guess for me, when I reached out, let's say I put my profile out, I got reached out to by some women, and then I reached back out, and then I didn't hear anything from them. So that was the frustrating part of for
Yeah.
me is like, well, if you reach out to me first, and I reach back to you because I found you attractive. Well, okay, you don't want to talk on the phone, but at least let's do some what's it called, instant messaging or something like that. So it
Right.
was just frustrating. So I got off. I haven't been on apps in like 8 to 10 years, and I'm not a fan of it. But I definitely agree with you on like some of these apps like Instagram. Just recently, Marilee, we're talking Marilee Grace, the swipe right effect, and some woman that I don't know, uh, never showed her face, is asking me for $100 because her grandmother's sick. So I said, well, if I'm going to give you $100, I'm going to need, excuse my language, I'm going to need some cheeks. That's the young people's terms I'm using. And so she answered, and it was such an answer that didn't even make sense. She goes, "How about, what do you mean cheeks?" Something like that. So then I knew it wasn't that person who she said she was. It was probably a bot
Mhm.
or someone trying to scam me, asking
Yeah.
for $100 for medicine. So the last couple of days, that person hasn't even reached out to me. So for you, going back to the apps, what was the deal? What's the allure at the beginning to get onto the apps? What was that, you know,
Um,
situation for you that made you want to get on the apps?
well, just to be able to have conversation with the women in my group.
Okay.
That I was in this group. I'd gone through the coursework, I was getting the coaching, and then there was this group of women who had also were receiving coaching and were had gone through the program, and it was program for women who were leaving, you know, um, how shall I put it, high maintenance personality relationships.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there was kind of a camaraderie, and some of the women were at different stages. They'd been divorced longer, And I just really was trying to fit into the group and be able to have a conversation. And I was curious. I heard a lot of talk about them. So I really thought, what can it hurt?
Right.
But what it can hurt is it's so mind numbing. It really is. And it's a big time waster because you have to do the swiping, and we get so addicted to our phones.
Yeah.
And so you kind of get addicted to the swiping and wondering if somebody's going to like you. And they're instantaneously saying all the things that you want to hear, which that should be number one red flag, or the when they're the first thing that they say to you is, "Hey, gorgeous. Oh my God, you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Well, ladies, gentlemen, if anybody's telling you that, run. That's
Yeah.
not authentic. That's not, they weren't having real conversations.
Yeah.
And so you just keep swiping thinking, I'm going to find a real person. I guess it's kind of like people who maybe play, um, are gambling,
Mm.
they're gambling, they go to the casinos and it's just one more pull. I'm going to hit the jackpot this next time. I'm going to put in
Yeah.
another quarter. I'm going to get in, I'm going to put in another dollar. I'm going to pull again. It's around the corner. And if I leave now, the next person who sits in the seat, they're going to get what I should have gotten. I've got so
Yeah.
much time invested. And so you just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. When I finally got to the point where it was just that I was collecting data, and I do want to make clear that Hank, chapter 5 and chapter 15,
Okay.
was not data until he forced me to make him become data.
Gotcha.
He didn't become data until July, when I finally told him he was exhausting and that I just couldn't do this anymore. And
Wow.
then, but he became a different type of data. He didn't fit into the guys that made me go, the kinks, any of that. He fit into a category of his own. And I want to be very clear about that, because it wasn't like I was catching a lot of feelings for him, but I really, truly, I did have feelings for him, not of love, but of interest. I cared about him.
Yeah.
When he told me things that were going on, I was actively concerned, or I was happy if something went on in his life, or things like that. It wasn't like he was the rest of them, where I was asking questions to see, are you a bot? Are you a scammer? Or are you a catfisher?
Right.
And those people I called out.
Okay.
you know, I called them out, and they usually right away deleted
They
me.
blocked
And
you
I
or
was
something
like,
like that,
"Hey,
right?
where'd
Yeah.
you go? You just proved me right." Um, so he was very different, but he was good for me in realizing that I could very easily fall into some of those old patterns.
Right.
And so it's making me have to work on recognizing those old patterns to make myself stronger, to heal some of those additional parts that I didn't realize I needed to heal.
Yeah.
And helping me so that if I do ever enter into the dating game again, maybe not on the apps, but if I ever do seek out somebody, I will hopefully recognize some of those early things that I missed.
Gotcha. Yeah. So when did you get off? Because I wanted to touch base on two chapters here, but when did you get off the apps finally? And so if you want to meet someone, what did you start doing? Did you start going to meetup groups or singles events, business events? So if you could talk about that.
Okay, so I officially got off the apps in July of, let me think, 2022.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I was so exhausted couldn't mentally wrap my brain around sitting down to write the book because I
Yeah.
learned so many new things about myself that it was like, oh gosh. And I went on a healing journey to Costa Rica in 2022, got a lot of clarity, and came back and started writing the book. Probably the actual writing of the book what started in March. I started compiling my categories prior to that.
That's the
And
book.
there it is. And then it was published in September. Now, am I working on actively meeting anyone? Not at this time.
Okay.
I am, I think that I want to do things a little bit more organically and
Mm,
not forced.
wow.
I feel like there are lots of opportunities, to meet people. We just don't look at them as the opportunities that they are, and we don't necessarily present ourselves in a way as to, okay, I'm going to the store. I might meet somebody.
Right.
How many times do we go to the store and we take up a conversation with the person standing next to us as we're picking out asparagus? You make small talk and start when you go out, open yourself up to the possibilities. I open myself up to the possibilities for conversations when I'm walking my dog,
Right.
when I'm at the grocery store, when I go out to that restaurant. And I date myself a lot. I am not afraid to go to the movies by myself. I go on vacation by myself. I go out to dinner by myself. I do many things by myself because I like my company, and I've decided that I'm a pretty worthwhile person to take on dates, and it doesn't require another person to be on that date with me.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that I wouldn't go on a date with somebody, but it's got to be a very uniquely special person.
Yeah.
And doing a lot of work on yourself makes it so where you're more open to people. You're not going to run and hide. I haven't done any like meetup groups. There are there's a group out of Omaha, Nebraska. They
Hmm.
are a matchmaking group because I did a little bit of research on how people are meeting people. And I thought, well, if I ever decided to actively try something app similar, I'd probably hire a matchmaker.
Okay.
And I actually was looking at matchmakers because I'd seen something online, a reel or a story, a news story about a matchmaker, and it was this one out of Omaha, and it was around Valentine's Day, I believe. And I started to think, if I'm paying and they're paying and it's more than, $10 a month or whatever it costs on an app. I never did the paid subscriptions on the apps. And
Right.
if I ever did the apps again, I'd pay the most
Okay.
because other people paying the most are not going to be catfishers,
Good
spammers,
point.
or bots.
Yeah.
But I really thought a matchmaker, if I tell them authentically who I am and they're doing the swiping for me, and they've got a database of people who have also paid a little bit higher ticket, uh, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I don't think that a man is going to pay $2,000 if they're not interested in really making a connection.
Yeah. I mean, you're throwing your money away.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've heard about matchmaking. Some people like it, some people don't. But I think if, like you just made the point, if somebody's paying a high fee, 2, 5, whatever it is, they're going to be serious because they want to meet
Right.
someone. And so, Marilee, I want to talk about there was like one chapter in particular, which was chapter 8. Is that really your name? Men hiding behind women's names. So talk more about that because that's interesting because I never thought about that. And so when I read the chapter, I said, "Oh, I got to answer this." So if you could just briefly, if you could talk about, because I want people to read the book. It's really a good book.
So those caught me off guard because I would see I would see their picture, and then I'd see that their name, it's Beverly, and I'm thinking, what country also uses Beverly as a male name? It's not the United States. You say you're from the United States. A lot of them said that they were from Norway and Sweden and other countries. That was always a clue that they weren't.
Right.
But Beverly, Shirley, and then they would tell me, oh, well, that's my mother's name, and she passed away 5 years ago, so I used that name in honor of her. And I think that's weird. That's
Yeah.
weird
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you would call yourself, I mean, if my father had passed away, I'm not going to put on my profile Frank in honor of my dad. I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah,
That is
exactly.
totally crazy. And so whenever I saw a female name, I knew, oh, yep, we're having a conversation. And I would right swipe on that one and immediately start in a conversation. And I learned to go slowly and gently into the conversation rather than, are you using a female name?
Right.
You know, and I got interesting stories, and it was usually because it was their dead mother's name or their grandma's name, or that's what my mom used to call me. And I'm thinking, why did your mom name you John and calling you Sally?
Yeah.
That's
Hell,
weird.
hello.
Yeah. Yeah. So just odd, crazy. And I
See that.
think what it was those were typically, in my opinion, the scammers that were from outside of the United States that were
Yeah.
located in other countries and had no clue. They just pulled names
Yeah.
and slapped names on these profiles, not realizing that, oh my goodness, this is a feminine name.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is not believable. And then, here I am swiping on them and having this conversation. And then at the end, zinging, I'm saying, I know that you're not authentic. You've done this and this and this and this. And then, oh, well, fine, be that way. And it was always my fault. I was always the one being the big B because I confronted them. And then they'd usually use some swear words and cuss me out for wasting their time. And it's like, oh, sorry, not sorry.
It's funny that you say that because I remember a couple of times on Instagram, you could tell by their spelling, you could tell how they write a sentence, and you're like, oh my God, this doesn't make sense. They don't use any
Right.
punctuations or anything like
Right.
that. So I knew, so I went along with it, and
Mhm.
then I would see, I think a couple of times, which I won't do anymore. They'll want to take the conversation to WhatsApp. Then I would see like
Yes.
a foreign telephone number, and then when I looked it up, it was like from Africa. And it was an
Yeah.
American sounding name. And I'm like, hey, where did you get this, African phone number? And then I just blocked them,
Oh,
so.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
another chapter.
Anytime they try to
Yes.
get you to go to WhatsApp, once you get off the dating apps, the people, the companies who run the dating apps, the owners, the CEOs, whatever, the IT people, they can't do anything for you if you start getting harassed if you go to WhatsApp,
Yeah.
because WhatsApp is encrypted and it's safe for WhatsApp users, but it takes you off the safety
Mm.
of, like, Bumble and Facebook dating, Hinge, Tinder, all of them, so anytime you are right away, and it was always like within the first few sentences wanting to go to WhatsApp,
Yeah. Same thing
that's
with
a
me.
red flag.
Yeah.
Don't go to another. And if they say, well, it's just a more functional app. No, we're fine here.
Yeah.
Well, we
Yeah.
can
I
do
don't do that
videos.
no more
No, we can
too.
do them here.
Yeah.
You know, that's a sure sign.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. And chapter 11, the kinky side of dating apps.
Oh
Again,
my.
briefly. So when I saw that and I read it, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. This is interesting. And
One
this is
gal
the
that I
book,
worked
guys. I'll definitely put it on the show notes.
one gal that I work with, she was telling somebody about my book, and she says it's a little bit spicy, and I was like, spicy? What do you mean? And she said, chapter 11 is spicy. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I guess it is. Kinks. Oh my goodness. You learn a lot about the kinks. Uh, You know, I I don't want to ever judge anybody for what they like and what they don't like.
Yeah.
I have found that I am very vanilla, um, very, very vanilla. But wanting pictures of your toes, you know, telling me what they want to do to my toes. I didn't really write a lot about that. but other kinks, wanting threesomes,
Right.
very much I had a couple of people who were into bondage. One of them that was a dom looking for a sub, had to Google. I thought I knew what it was, did a lot of work with Urban Dictionary and realized, okay, yep, this is what it means. I was right about what it means, but what does it really mean? I mean, what does that look like? And so
Right.
I had a conversation with one young man, and he was, golly, probably 20 years younger than me. So I was thinking, why is he even interested in me? And it was it wasn't about a relationship. It was about a dom sub relationship, and age doesn't matter. And I was very upfront with him, letting him know, yeah, I'm not interested in that, but I have questions. And
Right.
so he answered my questions, and he answered some very direct questions about, how did you learn about this? And it was an older woman. And what do you like about it? And just about sex? Is it about control? Is there any feelings? And he's like, it's very separate.
Right.
It is totally about control and
Mm,
sex without the emotional attachment.
gotcha.
And he says, if I want sex with an emotional attachment, it's not a dom sub relationship. And that perplexed me. But that was that was just his little kink. That's what he enjoyed.
Yeah.
There was another man that was also a dom looking for a sub, and I didn't even go and ask any questions because his profile was so dark.
Yeah.
He liked me. I liked him back so that I could just read his entire profile. And I do a lot of paraphrasing when I talk about him in that chapter, because it was so dark, the things that he said, and he was so triggering to me that I did not want to. I wanted to make it gentler for people to read, but still kind of paint a little bit of a picture as to what he was about. But he was a very dark side of the dom sub relationship,
Yeah.
and kind of the dangerous side of a dom sub relationship. And so once I read about him, I immediately, blocked him from a conversation. Even his pictures were very dark.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah,
so
it's a
yeah,
good thing you did. First of
yeah.
all, Marilee, I want to thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I really appreciate it. And before I let you go, talk more about your book. Where can people find it? Yeah, because like I said, it's a really good book. I'm like, and
Okay.
that's only a couple of chapters that I talked about. There was more, but yeah, talk
Oh
more about
yeah.
your book. Yeah.
Okay, so my book is called Right Swipe: A Quest for Love. It's available on Amazon. I am working on an audio version right now. It's an ebook and a hardback, or not a hardback, a paperback. Go and buy it today. It's $14.99 for the paper. So if you like to be able to read it, and if you're like Will and you're going to make little notes in it and to go back to, and believe me, you will go back to things and go, did I read that right? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I have it split into 3 different parts. The third part tells you about how I found true love. And I'm not going to spoil it so that people can
Yeah.
actually
People need
read
to
it.
read that.
But
Yeah.
my journey about how I found true love in the end, and what the dating apps taught me. So that's the book. It is a fun read. It's an easy read. The way I talk here is the way I
Yeah.
talk in the book, with a little bit of sometimes sarcastic humor in there as well. So yeah,
All right, sounds good. And
it
talk more
was
about your
fun.
website. Yeah, no, like I said,
Okay.
reading it was fun, and it's only what, 120 something pages, 130 pages.
Yeah, yeah,
So
it's
you could
not
definitely,
a hard
probably in a
read.
couple of days, you could finish it.
Yeah.
And talk more about your website. What can people find there?
Okay, my website is www.rightswipegirl, all one word, situationship.com. There you can learn a little bit about me. You can learn about some of the courses that I offer, the coaching that I do. I primarily work with women who are wanting to learn more about how to love themselves and self-love. I also am developing a course on loving yourself during and after divorce, because I think that's very important. And I have another course that is once you kind of are through that self-love and you're feeling good about yourself and you just need the next little oomph beyond, that's the Clarity Catalyst course. So you can find it all there on my website. You can also ask to be a part of my mailing list. I do a monthly newsletter. I also am found on social media, RightSwipeGirl, all one word. I'm on Facebook and Instagram.
All right, no, I'll definitely put that on the show notes. Well, first of all, Marilee, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I had a great time talking to you. I probably could talk to you for another 1 or 2 hours, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's
Yep,
been
my
fun.
pleasure. Yep, bye-bye.